Hello, you wonderful people, and welcome to another episode of Crime Centric. This being a show I talk about crime dramas that I watch. For today's episode, I'm going to talk about the latest episode of The Cleaning Lady. A lot of really interesting things went down in this episode, so let's break it down. Well, first and foremost, there is this episode created this interesting dynamic between Tony and Armand, because I think there is a part of her that kind of got it a little twisted in her head who Armand is and the people he works for. I think it's like, despite who he works for, she probably didn't think that's what defined Armand, because like Luca has this cute picture of Armand as like a knight. It's like, oh yeah, this is the guy who saved my life. And she even gives it to Armand. And it's this really sweet and touching moment. And his wife is watching nearby, and I was like, is she going to misconstrue this? Because obviously someone had asked, commented last episode asking me, how long do I think it's going to be before it turns into a situation between Armand and Tony? And I think it's going to end up being a lot sooner than we think it will be. But obviously this episode kind of created a bump in the road in that. But I think there is an element of like Armand likes her and she kind of likes him too. But just like a person, because it's like, oh, he's not the bad guy I think he is. Because it's like, right, he only got into this business because he was trying to help his father. And now his father doesn't want to have anything to do with him, which I think it's funny because considering she uses that against him later. But yeah, basically she has to clean up. And I love that he's like, no, it isn't what you think. It was like a party. Some mishap happened. And I just need you, it's like, a wedding, bachelor party and stuff like that. Things kind of got wild and, crazy. So obviously with the wedding going on, they've kind of got a lot going on. But then it turns out there's a guy who knows too much and he wants to get paid. And I love, he's like, oh, there'll just be this one-time thing. I got money issues. It's like, that's the problem. You pay someone off once, they're going to keep coming back over and over and over again. And Armand scared the living crap out of him. It's like, no. Actually almost killed the dude, but then he was like, right, you come around here again, you talk to anyone about this, you will die. I'm actually surprised he even let Tony bring him back to life, because I thought it was going to like, no, let him die. I thought that's going to happen, but it's like, Armand has a temper on him, and he just kind of lost control, because, well, he's so integrated into this family now. I mean, he's grown up around this family, because once again, he brought up last episode, his father works for this family, so he's had close ties to this family enough that they feel like family to him, especially when he doesn't have his own family anymore because his father turned his back on him. So he goes above and beyond for this family. And so it's like, right, you're not just threatening me, you're threatening this entire family by you doing what you're doing. So get out of here. And obviously, once again, Tony's like, wait, you're not who I thought you were, because you could have killed him. And what did he do? He's just like, clean this up, clean it up. It's like, right. He wasn't just like, I'm sorry. Could you just please, like, he turned more into her boss. It's like, right. You kind of got this relationship twisted. You work for me. Yeah, she's done some stuff before, because even the whole Theo thing, it's like, right, that wasn't him that killed Theo. That was Tarek that did it, so it's a little different. Beating the ever-living crap out of Jimmy last episode. Was he the one that actually pulled the trigger? Doesn't seem like it, because he didn't walk back in holding the gun, not unless he passed it on to his boy, but he beat the ever-living crap out of Jimmy. Someone else probably popped it. So she probably justified it by, like, he gets scary, but he beats people up. Not that he killed. It's a little different. Granted, it was about preserving herself in that moment, so it's a little different, because it was self-preservation, because, right, Hayek was about to kill her because he thought it was necessary, which I didn't notice this until this episode, because I kept being like, the actor who plays Hayek seems familiar. If I'm not mistaken, and I could be, I have to check on this a little bit later, but I believe the actor who plays Hayek, isn't that the actor who played Farouk, aka the Shadow King in Legion? Because I think so. The thing, what throws me off is like, but looking at his eyebrows and hearing his voice, I'm like, I think that's him. Because obviously, in this, he's got the shaved head and he's got like more facial hair. Like obviously with, Farouk, he had like the thin mustache. But I think it might be the same actor. I was like, oh, if that's the case, that's so dope. Yeah, he was also meant to collect a whole bunch of like, oh yeah, it's like, this is our Armenian, tradition, like people basically have to bring a sum of money. And I love that Armand was like, wait, are you serious? Wait, you're serious? He's like, yeah, I mean, he's like, no, I trust you enough. Like, you need to round around some of those numbers. So he was basically able to get like a whole bunch of money from obviously a lot of very powerful people. So And obviously his wife is telling him, like, right, use this as an opportunity to reach out to Hayek, and that way you can, like, make him see you as an even business partner in this hotel, like, because he'll bring you in, especially because Hayek's talking about legacy and stuff like that. And obviously Tarek was kind of being like, no, oh, why don't you ask me to handle that money stuff? He's like, no, I got a special job for you, son. He's like, yeah, Tarek's all about it, until he finds out his dad's actually shipping him back to, like, join the Armenian, like, army, because it's like, yeah, like, because I'm not well versed in everything that's going down there, but it seems like there's a lot. Because he talked about, like, right, like, we have to stick together as a community because of what we lost in our home. So I think it's probably just like a divide and someone else coming in taking from their country. So it's like, we got to take back what's ours, type of thing. And it's like, my son, he's going to join the army. Like, the mom doesn't seem too happy about it. She's kind of like, I'm sorry, son, but, like, what your dad says goes. And everyone's like, oh, yeah. Tarek's not too happy about it. He's like, oh, no, you're going to send me off to be... No, like, I thought I was going to be here to take over the business. Seems like Armand's kind of in that position, which, makes Tarek, like, not like him much anymore. Especially because it's like, right, despite... He's a welcome guest in our family, but that's all he is, a guest. He's actually the lowly help. He's not part of this family. He never was. He was just an outsider. Now he's tried so hard to fit in, but he doesn't belong here. It seems like Tarek's kind of got that. I mean... Tarek's got a big chip on his shoulder. That's why he killed Theo, because he's trying to act. I mean, granted, it worked out in the end because Theo ended up being like, he like was snitching on them to the FBI, but still, he didn't know that at the time. But Tarek just wants to prove himself so much to his dad that, like, no, I'm the one that should be taking over. Which that ambition could come back to bite his dad in the ass later on. We'll see. Obviously, we also learned about Garrett quite a bit this episode, like apparently the way he handled the Theo situation, because apparently Theo was like, y'all want out, and he's like, come on, there's plenty of CIs that get squirrely like that to try to squirrel their way around it. It's like, yeah, but he ended up dead. It's like, yeah, but almost like Garrett's almost like, that's beside the point. But it also turns out the last case he was involved in, he slept with a witness or something like that. So it's like, oh, cool. No wonder, like, one, your marriage is kind of in the situation it is. They're not divorced, but they are separated. Plus, why you're kind of in the shitter when it comes to your work, why people are just kind of, they don't like the way he handles things. I mean, that's the thing. This episode also, like, presented him in a better light. Last episode, he's that type. You got the feel last episode. He was like, yeah, he's the type of dude to do whatever it takes to get the job done. And that seems doubly so in this case. He does think it was Armand that killed Theo, which eventually when he asked Tony's gonna be like, it wasn't Armand who did it. It was actually Tarek who did it. Like, Armand never pulled the trigger. Like, Armand was actually completely against it, but Tarek pulled the trigger. So that's going to be a thing going forward. He's specifically after Armand, which I think is interesting. Because it's like he wants to take the whole thing down, the whole operation, the whole family down, but he wants to specifically go after Armand because I guess he thinks Armand's the chip in the armor that he could get access to, I guess. Or maybe he just has a personal vendetta against Armand, who knows. But once again, he does present the douchey side of himself because he comes at Tony like, yo, if you don't do what I want, one word, I can have you deported. I mean, you lied to a federal agent, so there's that. Then let's see how good your son is about getting stem cells in. I'm like, that's the biggest asshole thing you could have done and said. It's like, right, you're trying to convince her to work with you, threatening her son's life, but I guess it's like, right, threats work, but also it's like, right, you could be a little kind, like, right, you could do all the stuff you can promise, like, oh, I'm gonna protect you, I'm also gonna make sure that no one can ever deport you again so that your son can stay here to get the treatment he needs. Do that instead of just going the asshole route immediately, but he's just so adamant about taking his family down that he doesn't care about, like, pleasantries. But it's just like, yeah, he not just could have, he definitely should have handled that situation a lot better than he did. But, it is what it is. So, but upon Tony seeing that darker side of Armand, she kind of goes like, all right, I'll work with you. What do you need? It's like, cool. Oh, there's that money stuff. Yeah, I need you to find out who's actually giving Armand the money. And she's like, I'm not even invited to the wedding. He's like, you're a crafty enough person. And she is. She manipulates her way there by going to Armand's wife and be like, oh, if you need help at the wedding, I get if you have to ask your husband. She's like, no, I don't need my husband's permission to do anything. In fact, he bends to what I want. Obviously, Armand's not too happy about Tony being there, and it's just kind of like, oh, why? She's just a help, right? Or is there something else going on? He's like, go ahead, do what you want to. You always do. So it's not all sunshine and rainbows in that marriage. So it definitely seems like they have their issues. I wonder, is it because there's some part of her that does suspect that there is something between Armand and Tony, but it might just be that Armand feels a lot of like obviously him and Tony bonded last episode, but when he looks at her, he probably sees a lot of himself. And so a little bit of a kindred spirit. And so, because we don't know like his wife's background much, because it almost, she comes off, at least our first introduction to her, it's like she's like, oh, the partier and stuff like that. She's enjoying the lifestyle of him, kind of like the blood, sweat, and tears. Usually someone else's blood and tears that got him to where he is now. I don't know. We don't know like her, like obviously she supports him and everything, but you're also like, yeah, but are you like doing this because it benefits you in the long run? You want him in certain positions because that heightens where you are in the grand scheme of things. I don't necessarily know where she stands in the grand design of like this whole like organization, you know? But, so I don't know what bringing Tony was also like, one, just flexing to be like, oh yeah, like I make decisions, I do what I want, but also just to kind of test the waters a little bit between Tony and Armand. I don't know. But obviously the real thing is between him and Isabel, Hayek's daughter who's getting married. Turns out they have history. In fact, Hayek's the one that actually broke them up. It's like, yeah, my dad forced me to write this letter to you. And he was like, well, that was in the past, because her dad's all about her marriage, for one, not being with the help. And the sad thing is, despite almost being like at least he gets treated now like a son to his face, but behind his back, it's like, oh, you were always the help. Because your dad was the help, that makes you the help as well. And even now, like, probably Hayek still views him in that light. Because Armand was hoping, like, at the very least, like, hey, like, I'm seen at least on some equal footing in your eyes. But it's like, no, I will always be a little less than and lower on the totem pole for you. Despite all that I do for you, it's never good enough. It's never going to change your view of me. Like, how much I've had to sacrifice, and not only of my family, but of myself, just to be who you need me to be, so that I have the power and position to protect my family, so I never feel helpless again, you know? I mean, because he tried to tell, like, hi, he's like, oh yeah, that senator didn't show up. He's like, yeah, I'll call someone else. He's like, no, I want you to do it. And then his wife leaves with Hayek, and it's just like, no, like, I'll miss the ceremony. He's like, oh, it's fine. And his wife's like, no, you go ahead. You go move fast enough. So I'm like, do they both have some idea about, maybe it's because of the Isabella thing? I don't know. But it's just kind of like, yeah, no matter what, then that moment, it just strikes it like, right, no matter what I do, I will always be viewed in this lens. Because that's what I'm like, that's what I'm saying about his wife's circumstances. Like, she might have been someone in a well-off position even before she got together with Armand. Like, not unless that was like an arranged situation, like whether they actually fell in love or, you know, they met through, like, she just seems like she was someone that's from like a higher class anyway. So it's almost like, oh, I brought you up status-wise. You know, it's like, right, and she's the one kind of feeding his ambitions about like wanting more and stuff. So that's why I'm like, that's why I'm still curious about like what her position in all of this is. Like, where does she stand? Especially because she was the one convincing him, like, hey, while he's in a good mood at the wedding, try and convince him to make you part of the business partner when it comes to the hotel and the casino and stuff. Tony being pretty crafty, finding her way around, and she found the list of all the people's names and the money and stuff. And so I thought it was pretty interesting how she was able to she got that, and Tarek walks in on her. I mean, because she was so busy caught up watching him kissing Isabel. I was like, oh wow, this is the wedding of the family you're connected to, and you're kissing the bride to be, but that's because of their history, but they kind of have to leave the past in the past, you know, but neither one of them will forget, despite everything. But Tarek being like, oh, you're here to steal, aren't you? It's like, oh, he's like, right, I know who you are. You're the cleaning lady. You're the one brought in by Armand. It's like, oh, like, yo, what's going on between the two of you? Luckily, Armand came in to, like, snap Tarek out of it, because it's like, yo, he's like, oh, she's stealing from us. Tell her to empty her pockets, and it's just her phone. Luckily, she did a smart thing. It's like, right, don't want to take the, you know, because if that goes missing, Armand's going to be like, oh, you were in that office. That'd be a whole issue. But it's like, right, take a photo of it. You got the evidence you need. And because all she had was her phone, and it's like, cool. And Armand's trying to check on her, but she's like, "Don't touch me." He's like, "What? You scared of me?" He's like, "What am I?" And he yells at her, "What am I? You think I'm a monster?" And she's like, "Yeah, but look at what you did. You you sacrificed your father for the sake of this family and stuff." And then she's kind of like, basically talking about what he's done to become it's like, he's like, what does that make you? You came to me for help. It's like, he's like, you don't get to like have it both ways where you can basically be sanctimonious and judge me when you turn to me anytime you need help. And she's like, everything I do is for my family. He's like, me too. But it's like, no, you turned your back on your family by working for the people your father told you not to. And just for him, it's just like, once again, it's like, that's a touchy subject for him, especially because he told her that in confidence. He opened up to her, and to have her use that against him, it's kind of a dagger to the heart. But like I said, he thought there was a kindred spirit between him and Tony, because like, right, we're both people doing whatever is necessary. We are both people that are kind of seen as other in this country, and we got to stay together. We got to do what we can. We'll fight tooth and nail to keep the people we care about safe, to get to where we want to be, so we can protect those people. And so he's like, fine, you know what? Don't come crying to me for help when you need my help again, which she is going to need it because, well, obviously there's the trial that Luke is going to go through for that experimental stuff. But the problem is, because of everything last episode, he has his kidney, I believe is what they were saying, is compromised, and they can't let him do it. He gets removed from the list, which is so sad because he talks to that mom and her son who are also going through the trial as well. And because she has that little cute thing between her and Luca where she's like, right, we have walkie-talkies that when we get separated, when he's, going for the surgery, he'll be able to talk to me, which is super adorable. And she all wanted to give them to the woman and her son, but she was like, no, Tony, it's all going to work. This is just a bump in the road. You keep it. Eventually, time's going to be, everything's going to work out. Sadly, though, they can't do the operation. He would need a new kidney, but I don't know if it's a thing of he's not in a position to get a new kidney, because going under for kidney would most likely, his immune system's already compromised. That would probably kill him. So he would need this first before he even got into a position to get a new kidney. Plus they'd have to wait for a viable kidney and stuff like that. So that's just even more time. So she's like, right, perform the surgery. She's like, I can't, this would compromise the entire, thing. If even one person died, it would basically make it so no one else could take advantage. She's like, all right, we could do this off the books. I can pay you. And the lady's like, that's unethical. You should leave, Tony. So, but I'm sure for her, even crossing that line, trying to bribe someone, does not qualify the same thing as going as far as Armand has. So, I think she's like, it's apples and oranges. It can't be compared, But what I thought was interesting, though, is she found evidence, but she didn't bring it to Garrett, because I think, truth be told, she doesn't know if she can trust him. It's like, right, Armand is who she thought. She thought Armand was someone that he wasn't, and she saw his true colors. So now she's probably just waiting to try and see if the same thing applies to Garrett as well. So she's probably going to hold on to it until she can really get a good feeling on who Garrett really is. I think there's probably also the element of I need to make sure, it ties into it, but maybe see that he is a trustworthy enough person to know that when the time comes, he will actually have my back. Because also the thing is, and this is also probably something she's thinking about too, none of this is in writing. He's given his verbal word. That doesn't mean anything, especially as we know he is someone that can and does cross the line because he gets in trouble for it. So until she gets that all in writing, there's no guarantee it's all above board. So it's it's getting all loosey-goosey with this. Well, we already saw how things ended for Theo, but he's like, no, this is going to be a little bit different, because she's also in a position where he can push and use her how he wants to, especially if he kind of keeps it off the record, but we'll see. And on top of all that, because she offered him the walkie-talkies, it's like, right, you should be able to see your son. You shouldn't have to ask permission and stuff like that. Use this as a gift, because he made that whole point about right, my wife, we're separate right now, but she bought him the bike I told her I was going to buy, and now I can't even go to the party either. But he shows up, and once again, I think it's just a little bit of Oliver Hudson coming through, just him kind of being cute with the whole Cookie Monster thing, which was legitimately cute, showing right, Garrett's not an complete and utter piece of crap, at least when it comes to his own family. So there is good sides to him. It just kind of gets overridden by the douchebag side of things. So he's able to convince us, right, don't punish our son, because all the stuff that he looks forward to with his birthday is like the good, he's still our son, and so don't punish him for the mistakes I made. So his wife lets him in. So it's like, okay, so things are good on that front because of Tony. So that might put Tony more in his good graces to an extent. But I think that's what we're going to see a lot of this season, is her playing him, because she doesn't know who to really rely on, because she needs Armand because of his money and connections, but she also could use the FBI because she doesn't want to be mixed up in it. So she's going to try have her cake and eat it too, type of thing. So that's definitely going to be interesting to see how that plays out and works out for her. Another side of this episode is we kind of dive a little bit more into the whole Fiona situation. Obviously, her son is in a position, like, obviously they're getting a lawyer so he can get a citizenship situation, but it's going to be pretty costly, and she doesn't have the money necessary for it. Because she talks a little bit about, like, right, Chris's dad, it was a thing in overseas, but then he came back to the U.S., and she followed, but apparently he died in a car accident. So they're kind of in this compromised position. And even Chris is up there complaining, like, oh yeah, she lied to me for 15 years. And his sister's like, shut up. So it's like, I think his sister has some issues with things too, but I think it is a thing of, like, mom's trying her best and you're not, like, helping by being a smart aleck you are right now. But even more comes to light, because obviously for Chris, it's like, once again, I'm like, I get it, I understand, but I also feel like you're being a little shit right now. I said it last episode, I'll say it again. Your mom is struggling. She's doing everything possible for you. Be a little bit more grateful. She want to lie to you, she can lie to you for your sake, But he cooled off a little bit. But he was just, like, naming, like, oh, I can't do this, I can't do that, blah, 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 all this stuff he can't do because he's not because he's illegally here, that he's not a citizen and stuff like that. And then he's like, all the lies and stuff. So his mom finally comes clean. His dad isn't the guy he thought was his dad. The guy that died is like, no, your dad is someone I met. She's from the Philippines too, right? Met there, and it was a one-night stand. I made the guy you thought was your dad believe he was the father, but the moment he found out, he was upset. I guess maybe around the time of the accident, that's probably why he wasn't in a good place because of that, or maybe that happened after the fact. So it's like, yeah, she's like, but I figured, she's like, I'm sorry, just don't hate me, which is so sad that she has to kind of come from that perspective. But it is a thing of, I love you and I'm trying to do everything. Like, I thought I was young, I was dumb, I was just, because she was probably like, I'd say probably a teenager, like maybe like early 20s, when she had to make that decision. And it's just like, yeah, like, I had made sacrifices, I compromised because you are my son and I love you. And I just wanted to make sure that you were, in the best possible position. I wanted you to have every opportunity. I just wanted to do what was best for you. But he does cuddle up to her. So he kind of recognizes, like, right, I can't blame you for, yes, you lie, but you did what you needed to for my sake. So once again, he was acting like a little shit. I think he pulled back a little bit, like that kind of made me go, all right, you're not too bad, kid, but we'll see if it keeps up or not, because that might not be the case. It might be a thing of, nah, this is going to be something we continue going forward, but we'll ultimately have to wait and see. I'm excited to see where all of this ultimately ends up taking us going forward into the next episode. But really, that's all I'm going to talk about. So the next time we meet, be happy, be safe, live life to the fullest, and enjoy it. Good day and goodbye.